Hello, community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Nita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nita Polite Wilson, C Suite Trusted Advisor, Elite Team Strategist, and Board Director, preparing companies to navigate culture, complexity, and change. We are back for another conversation with my friend Avish Parashar, and we are talking about how we can reframe our focus in 2025 due to the uncertainty that we're going to be facing, in particular around DEI in the workplace. Avish, it's great to have you back.
Hey, thank you. I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation.
I am too. So I want to focus on something that you also work with your clients on: cry or laugh, coping through laughter. When we talk about coping, it can be any number of things. Last conversation, we talked about the dreaded, after holidays pounds. But now that we're facing different ways of showing up in terms of culture in the workplace or on college campuses, in government administration, how do we cope with laughter without making light of some of the very heavy topics that we're going to be dealing with in 2025?
So this is interesting in terms of, I think so much of our response is based on our inner dialogue. Mm-hmm. And different people process the world differently. And I would long say, I think anyone can do improv comedy. The one thing that separates someone who does improv is they take a stimulus and they just spin it a certain way. So like when I hear an idea, my mind sort of goes tangentially, which is great for improv. Other people get very fixated on reality and the right answer, which is not so great for improv. And so when we're talking about tough times, and do you laugh or cry? And neither response is wrong, but at times one is more or less productive than the other. Mm-hmm. And so much of it comes down to what is your inner dialogue? And when you're looking at a situation, are you looking at as to why is this terrible? Or are you looking at as where's the opportunity here? Or if that's too big, it's just what can I positively do in this situation? And, going back to our yes and yes but conversation, so many of the negative ones are yes buts. The minute you start saying yes but, you're heading yourself down the road of depression or anger or crying. And when you say yes and, like, all right, yeah, and just let your mind play. Because what happens is we'll get an answer like, well, all right, what could be good about this? Well, I guess maybe I'll get an opportunity to connect with more people. And then you're going to yes but. I guarantee you're going to yes but yourself. You're going to say, yeah, but that's not, or yeah, but that'll never work. And just let that go. Say, okay, and what if it did work? And then because the more playful you can be, the more we can steer our mindset towards laughter instead of crying. And this is not to say that you make light of things. A lot of this, it's like I have 3 kids, and we often tell them things like, that's an inside thought. Like that's an in your head thought, not a out of your mouth thought. And the number of times an idea pops in my head that I don't say because, other people might not. But what it does is it helps me process and cope. And I think that's what I like the world to do more of, really, because I think people take something so seriously and let themselves get so upset about things. Now, again, it's not about not taking things seriously, because I can laugh about something in my head, but realize, no, there's a serious issue. But what's amazing is the debilitating weight of sadness around something stops you from taking any action. So it's not about taking things lightly. It's about putting yourself in a state where you would actually take action.
As someone who, because you said earlier, sometimes what can take you out of your ability to make light of things as appropriate is looking for the right answer. I am very much a person who looks for the right answer. And so sometimes I kind of take myself out of that. Where's the, where can I find the silver lining in this? Even though I do tend to be an optimistic person, I lead with what's the right answer, because the last thing I want to do is make a bad situation worse by not having the right answer. So for someone like me, how would you coach them to get to that point to say, it's okay to take yourself a little less seriously, even in a very serious situation, dependent upon the context, because we always want to be appropriate no matter what we're trying to do.
And context here is very important. So if I'm talking to an executive or someone who may potentially book me for a gig and they ask me a question, I need to be a little bit more thoughtful there before I open my mouth. Mm-hmm. So, but the start then is if I want to develop this ability when I'm on my own, it's about giving myself permission to be silly, stupid, explore ideas that will never work. And even what's amazing is even when solo, this is what we all do, right? And when we brainstorm to find the right answer, what do? We sit there with a piece of paper, we write down the thing we want to achieve, our goal or the problem we want to solve. An idea pops in our head, and we don't even write it down. We say, nah, that's not going to work. And we try to come up with a good answer, one worthy of writing down. When I work with people on creativity, I say, the key here is to just start writing and don't let the pen stop moving. Now, in order to do that, you're going to have to write down ideas that are dumb, that are impossible, that are illegal, right? And you're not doing this you're not doing this for implementation. You're doing this for exploration, because the best ideas sometimes are hiding behind the worst. And if you get fixated on yes-butting that idea, like I can't write that down, you block your creativity. So if you want to come up with the right answer, you have to give yourself permission to come up with a huge number of wrong answers and get them out of your head.
I like how you just said sometimes the best answer is hiding behind the worst. I like that very much. How did you get to that? Because again, as someone who is always looking for the right answer, I don't necessarily think that it might be behind that last bad one that I had.
So this is the whole kind of creative method. And this is one of the reasons when I work with groups, I start with improv. I have them play improv games.
Can we do an example?
Sure. All right. So here, let's do it. If you'll help me with this.
Sure.
And this will tie into this conversation, and it'll tie in the conversation about control we had last time.
Okay, let's go for it.
So we're gonna do a simple little game. This is a 2-word story game.
Okay.
Now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna say 2 words, and then you're gonna say the next 2 words, and then I'm gonna say the next 2 words, and we're just gonna tell a story going back and forth, each of us going 2 words at a time. Now the 2 rules here are: number 1, we're gonna try to go as fast as possible.
Okay.
So don't try to pause and think about what the best 2 words are. Just say the first 2 words that come to your mind. Number 2, if one of us makes a mistake and lets 3 words come out, we're not going to stop. We'll keep going. All right. Now, if it gets to a point where because we are going fast, the story stops making any sense at all, like it's grammatically nonsensical, we'll just stop and start over. We'll just say, okay, we're done there. All right,
this
but
is
the key here is to go fast.
This is nervous laughter because I'm always. How do you expect me to find the right 2 answers and no time? I don't know that this is going to go well.
That's the whole. See now, if I had a longer time, right, in the context of a keynote or workshop, I would lead into this by talking about the improviser's mindset, which has 3 components: have fun, be willing to fail, and focus on what you can control.
Okay.
So we're going to focus on so the main thing here is have fun. Don't take it too seriously. Don't try to do it right. Okay. And number 2, be willing to fail. I'd much rather have us go fast and totally blow it than slow down and say the right 2 words.
Okay, community, full disclosure. This is live and unrehearsed. So what you get is what you get.
Yes. And Dr. Anita is the one who asked me to play a game.
I did. I asked for it. So here we go. All right.
Okay. All right. So just have fun with it. Ready?
All right.
Once upon.
Chocolate sauce.
Fell on.
My head.
And I.
Laughed out loud.
Suddenly a.
Angry squirrel.
Jumped on.
My head.
And started.
Licking the chocolate.
Off. Until.
Until I beat myself silly. That's more than 2 words. Okay.
All right. Let's stop right there. Okay. So now that's a ridiculous game, right?
It was. Yes.
And we told this nonsensical story, but still, there's still a story. It was nonsensical in terms of what happened, but it made sense. And it's funny. So you had admitted before that, you like to think and have the right answer before you speak. And you could see that response that happens at the end. You ended up saying like 7 words.
I did.
Just to make sure. And and this is where the practice comes from. I just say my 2 words. Now what happens is when you say your 2 words, you have sort of an idea for where you want the sentence to go that you're saying.
Right.
And when you pause, you kind of have a hope and an expectation that your partner will come back.
Right.
And then they don't. And in that moment, you have 2 options. The first thought that many people have is, oh, what 2 words can I say that fit my original idea? How can I keep this story going down the path I wanted it to? And when you do that, that's when the person pauses, right? That's when they stop because now they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The other option you have is to say, oh, that's not where I was going. Let me just say the first 2 words I can think of that grammatically make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that is letting go of control, because now you don't know where the story is going to go. You're just working with your partner. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when you do that, and both people are doing that, you end up telling a story that neither one of you would have come up with on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's creative, it's out there, it's innovative, right? It's a new idea because you're letting go of control. So to me, this game is both diagnostic and prescriptive. It's diagnostic in that when you play it, it gives you an immediate sense of, oh yeah, no, I really like think a lot, and I have trouble letting go with my creativity.
Yeah.
But it's prescriptive as well, because just by playing a game like this, you can develop the habit of, hey, I'll just say 2 words, and wherever they go, wherever the story goes, it's great. And if the story goes nowhere, that's fine too, right? That's the discipline of improv. Like, it's disposable theater. You do it once and it's gone forever. So let me pause there. I've been talking for a while. So did that make sense? Kind of how that felt? Or let me get your feelings on how that felt playing that game.
So it was fun up until the last few words that I said, beating myself over the head because I don't like the thought of anything on top of my head, obviously, right? Who would like that? Who would like that? And so, but it was my story that put the squirrel on top of my head. So there's a whole lot of like unpacking that I need to do there by myself in the privacy of my own thoughts. However, I will say that I could see this being a fun way to get to know people that we work with in a very low risk, non-stress, just kind of, hey, how do you think on the fly? And what does that look like? Is this something that I might be able to like have some fun with my husband and just sit down and do this and say, okay, we're going to tell a story and do the 2-word thing?
Oh yeah. One of the most common comments I hear from people is, should I see them again weeks or months after doing a program, is they'll tell me, oh, I do that with my kids now, right? I do that with my family. Like, yeah, it's great for work and personal development and coaching and this and that. But for just connecting with people, because laughter connects us. And so
it does.
When you do these types of games, it's fun, it's creative, it's spontaneous. And it's funny, this is why sometimes when I'm talking to a client, I'll be talking about an improv game I'm going to do, like the one you saw me do, which is this expert interview where I pretend to be an expert on some topic. And people will say, the client might ask me in advance, oh, can you do that? But can you do that topically? Can you do that about our industry or organization? And I'll say, I can, but it'll make it completely miss the point. Because once we add in making it about something real, we go immediately back to the thinking place. Right? Now it becomes important that we say the right thing, even if it's a joking context.
Right.
So I start with silly. I'm like, you know what? Let's just tell a 2-word story that maybe it's going to have a squirrel and chocolate sauce. Or you're going to be an expert on cheerleading, even though you've never cheerleaded before. Just to practice the technique of being creative and letting go and being in the moment. And then once you develop the skill, then you can bring it back to something relevant. But if you try to jump too many steps ahead, people get in their own way.
Thank you for those important guidelines. Community, I hope you like that. I hope you had fun laughing with me and not at me, although I'll never know the difference. It's okay. But stick around for our third conversation with Avish, because now we're going to talk about SMART goals versus non-SMART goals and see how that's going to help us in 2025. If this conversation did anything to help you kind of lighten the load in terms of the mental heavy lifting that you're anticipating in 2025, please do share this with your network and put down your own comments. This is a learning community, and I want to hear what you have to say. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you, please stay in the flow with me. Follow, like, and overshare any podcast that helps you to reframe hot topic conversations from difficult to different. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.